So welcome. This is the January 13th, 2022 Inspiring Author Conversations. I'm Kathy Davis with Davis Creative Publishing Partners, and today we'll be speaking with Mary Nunaley about how to bring your lead magnet to life with gamification. Before we get to Mary, I just want to remind everybody of a few logistics. Your chat button is at the bottom. If you've not already muted yourself, please do so. If you have any questions, please drop them into that chat box, and Julie and I will watch those questions and make sure we get those answered by Mary. And your presence at these meetings constitutes your, how do we say this? Your permission to be seen in the recordings. If you do not want to be seen, make sure your video is off. We promise to end the call around noon or shortly thereafter. If we have a lot of questions, we'll end probably close to 12:15. So our theme for 2022 continues to be inspiring authors. Mary and I met, I think it was, I can't remember the name of the anthology right now, but it was one that I think we sponsored with Rebecca, but we met through one of our anthologies, and it's pre-COVID, I think, that my brain has become a blur with.
It was the Bright Spots anthology, which was right after COVID started.
That's right. It was October. That's right. So help me welcome Mary. Mary's an ATD, and you can tell us what that means here in a second. Certified Master Instructional Designer and award-winning course developer. Mary brings a sense of playfulness and passion to everything she does, and is always asking, why is this happening and how can we improve it? This comes through in that work she does with her clients and the impact they're able to make with their audiences. Welcome, Mary. So
thank you.
What is gamification and what is ATD?
Sure. So I'll start out with the simple one. ATD stands for the Association of Talent Development, and it's the organization that human resources people, course creators, instructional designers, primarily at the corporate level, belong to, but they have this really rigorous training that you have to go through to say that you know what you're doing. So it's sort of like the corporate version of the graduate program without going to grad school. And then gamification has a lot of different meanings to different people. At its core, gamification is taking game-based elements to help encourage your audience to take a specific action, provide them feedback, and reward them for taking their action. And so a lot of folks today think of gamification as strictly points, badges, and leaderboards. Like, oh, you get a badge and you get a badge and you get a badge. It's kind of like the Oprah version of gamification. However, as the end user, the you get a badge, you get a badge, you get a badge really doesn't drive any action because the badge doesn't have any meaning. So how many of you have ever been on a website, for example, where it's like, oh, you get a badge just for signing up on the website? And it's like, yeah, okay, I clicked a button, so what? Yeah. Versus you get a badge because in this forum or this group or this author circle, you answered 10 questions for aspiring authors or aspiring programmers, and your answers were voted as helpful. And so now you get a badge as a novice question answerer because it's showing that you really know what you're talking about. And your peers have said, oh, she provides or he provides valuable information.
So at its simplest form, a really good example might be this Zoom call where down at the bottom, we have those little reaction buttons. And when you asked your question earlier, how many have, et cetera, I have been on calls where people will say, oh yeah, press one of those little buttons down there, and you're not really communicating verbally, but you're communicating in kind of a game-like way.
Exactly. So how does this relate to you as aspiring authors? Well, you've written your book or you're writing your book. You need to get people to know about your book. And so one of the ways you can do that is to do a lead magnet. You can go on a speaking tour, you can get on stages. So there's a lot of different ways. But when I was talking to Kathy and Julie about this, it's like, well, how do you gamify your lead magnet? And I want to just show you a simple example. And let me start with the caveat that some people think that I am nuts because of the way that I do lead magnets. And currently, most people, when they do a lead magnet, it's like, give me your name, give me your email address, and then I'll send you this PDF, or then I'll send you this download, or then I'll send you this information. How many times have you done that, like in a giveaway? And then you get bombarded by emails from people. It's like, oh, but I really just wanted that checklist. And now I'm getting all of these emails all the time. And that's really not what I wanted. And again, that's what we're taught. This is how you build your list. You collect emails, you send them. And there's people like me that just get too lazy to unsubscribe. So I just delete it. And that's how I have 22,000 unread emails sitting in my Gmail.
Mhm.
What I encourage folks to do is capture that information on the back end of the lead magnet, but create a lead magnet that's more engaging and interactive. And so it might be a quiz. It might be something like I'm going to show you right now. And I believe that Julie's going to be able to send this link to you so you can play with it in detail after today's session.
Mhm.
This was created with a tool called Genially. Full disclosure, I'm not an affiliate. I get nothing if you use Genially. It's just a tool that I have found that's really fun and simple to use. And they have a free and a paid version. So you could create some lead magnets for yourself quickly using their templates and test out the concept. But these are interactive. So when I say interactive, that means that I'm watching this on my computer or on my phone and I'm clicking things. So like here, I click the information button and I've got details about email marketing benchmarks for 2021. So if I'm a real nerd and I want to learn more about that, I click that button and I get the details. Or average email open rate in 2020 was 18%, average click-through rate less than 3%. I can click this plus button, something pops up and it gives me more information, but I'm giving my audience control through the interactivity of what they explore on the lead magnet. And so I did this, I did a thing about quizzes. Interactive content is 80% more engaging. Studies have been done to show that. So here's an example of BuzzFeed, which a lot of people are used to playing BuzzFeed quizzes on their Facebook. So here's an example of why it's important. So again, I'm talking about lead magnets. I'm also showing my audience, here's some of the things that you can do. Talk to me, not at me. So what are some struggles? Well, nobody downloads my stuff. Okay. Maybe it's because I don't have time, or I've got my folder of things that I've downloaded that I'm probably never going to read, but it seemed really interesting at the time. There's too much product, but not enough to really change my life. There's no engagement. There's a lot of downloads, but my audience unsubscribes. People won't join my group. People don't want to read my book, that type of thing. So it's like, how do you fix that? Well, there's over 1 billion people that play games. And when you think about games, it's not just video games, it's tabletop games like Monopoly or Risk. It's phone games like Candy Crush. It's card games. It's role playing games. So, if you get out of that mindset of only a bunch of, 20 something year old nerds play video games and think about games as a general part of life, if you can build a lead magnet for your book that's more engaging and has some of those game elements, you're more likely to bring people into it to go, "Ooh, I want to try that," or "Ooh, I want to learn some more about that." So again, it's just simple mouse clicks here. The brain loves the game, technology advancements. Those of you, most of you have probably heard about Metaverse and how, we're moving into this 3D virtual reality kind of world. And so people like to play those games and it's coming more and more around us. Kathy, it looks like you have something to say.
Quick question. Yeah. So when you said Metaverse, is that Facebook extension that they're like holding company? Because
So
they changed their name to Meta.
they changed their name to Meta. They're
Uh-huh.
trying to convince people that the metaverse is their thing. If you go back in time, though, what Facebook is trying to convince us is new and shiny has actually been around for at least 20 some years, starting with Second Life. But because they've bought Oculus and they've got the Oculus goggles, they're integrating with everything. They're trying to get people to think that Facebook and Metaverse go hand in hand, but Metaverse really is more about this 3D virtual reality that you're going to see coming up with a lot of different places. I follow an attorney called Mitchell Jackson who focuses on the metaverse and using the metaverse in your courses and your authoring and that type of thing. And he's really fascinating. And
Thank
then
you.
there's also NFTs. You're welcome. Non-fungible tokens, which you may see stuff about. It's basically digital art that has a value assigned to it. So as an author, and I am not an expert on NFTs, so I'll start with that. But as an author, you may want to find somebody that understands NFTs and create some NFTs to also help market your book.
So let's talk about that a little bit, because I got lost.
Uh-huh.
And I get a feeling that maybe some others on the call might be a little lost.
Sure.
So if I'm an author and I'm trying to get new readers, explain what an NFT is, what's the acronym stand for, and how can I use that to my benefit?
Sure. So an NFT stands for non-fungible token.
Spell
And
fungible.
FUNGIBLE.
And what is non-fungible? Mean I can't turn it in, it's not worth anything?
So it's not really worth anything, and it's a digital asset
Okay.
versus a physical asset. So I'm going to assume, and I could be wrong, that most of you have heard of something like Pokemon cards, because Pokemon has now been around for a long time, or baseball cards if you're of my generation. And it's a physical card with a picture of an athlete with their stats on the back of it. That could be in considered a token. And if you get that baseball card signed, and it happens to be signed by somebody who's really famous, and I grew up in Chicago, so I'm going to date myself again. Let's say that I have a signed, pristine conditioned Ernie Banks baseball card. For somebody who is a collector of baseball cards, I might have paid $0.25 for it because it came in my bubblegum pack. And then I took it to a Cubs game and I got lucky and he signed it. And then I put it in a photo album and never touched it.
Mhm.
And now I have no money left for my retirement because my 401k crashed. And somebody says, oh, that Ernie Banks card is worth $50,000. Well, to a collector, it might be. To somebody like me, it's just this baseball card sitting in a photo album.
Gotcha.
The non-fungible token is that same type of thing. It's a limited edition digital piece of art or book or something where you assign a value to it, and then people can trade it if they want, but it's all digital. But as a result of having that, it also opens up some extra benefits. So there's an artist that I follow. He does these drawings with olives. He has created some of his art as non-fungible tokens. And if you purchase one, then you also get like a private VIP chat with him when he's in your town, or you get a actual physical work of art from him. So it's an emerging market. It's only been.
So, yeah, so for an author, they could create a token of sort
Mhm,
that is given with the purchase of each book,
right,
or you send me your receipt and I'll give you one of these tokens.
right,
And then as an author, I would assign my own value. Like, what would that mean? It means,
correct.
with one token, so it's kind of like with a GoFundMe account, at the smallest level, you're going to get a 30-minute phone call with me, or at
Mhm,
the next level, you get the ebook, the hardback of the phone call, plus a 2-hour consultation with me.
right. And then the other part of it, and this is where it ties into the gamification, is that scarcity aspect. So just like with the baseball cards, I might have to buy a whole lot of bazooka bubblegum packages to get that Ernie Banks card, because they might have had 100 of this like rookie that never made it beyond his first year for every one Ernie Banks. So that's why that Ernie Banks card now today in 2022 is worth so much money, because there was maybe only one for every 100. So as an author too, you want to build in that sense of scarcity. Like, hey, there's only 5 of these NFTs. Think of it like the Willy Wonka golden ticket. And so, but the only way you're going to know if you get one of these is if you buy my book.
So I saw a news release yesterday, and I believe it was on LinkedIn. Anheuser-Busch is doing that golden ticket kind of game. Have you heard anything about that? They
I've
just
heard,
started, they
yeah,
just
a
started
little bit.
publicizing it yesterday. So
Yeah, and Heidi,
the theory behind that is, I'll let you talk about, why would Anheuser-Busch want to do something like that? But yeah, go ahead and answer Heidi's question.
well, no, Heidi was just saying that NFTs are also used for a lot of other things, real estate, artwork, music. So it's becoming a very large and more popular area. Like McDonald's, I believe, even had some NFTs. And I
So
could be
is this
wrong on
part of
that.
the Bitcoin?
So it does tie into that somewhat
Okay.
as well.
Okay.
And so we've kind of gone off the track, but I think as you move
Thank
into
you.
this
Yeah.
gamification realm, you're going to hear NFTs coming up more and more. And especially now with the metaverse, they all seem to be intertwined with each other.
It's a new world.
It is a new world. So going back to the gamifying your lead magnet, the thing is like, what could you do to better reach your audience? And so these are two that we've built for clients. One is somebody who is into self-care, and she has a Facebook group called the SelfCare Sisters. And so this was sort of a story for them. It's a mini escape style game. So why self-care? And I'm not going to take you through the whole thing, but here are these different missions. So if depending on your book, for example, you might create 2 or 3 missions to go, okay, what's your interest? So let's say I'm writing a book about gardening. Oh, I want to learn about gardening in the spring. I want to learn about gardening in the summer. I want to learn about gardening in the fall. Well, then I could pick my path and answer some questions. And then when I complete my path, then I get a key that unlocks the screen that says, oh, great, you've completed this whole path. It's very clear that you're interested in gardening. And as a result, here are 3 ways that you can get in touch with me. And because you've made it down this path, you also get 10% off my book, or you also get an upgrade to my next summit or something along that lines. I'll just need your name and email address to stay in touch. If you're not ready for that level of commitment, here's my Facebook group. You can just join that. If you're really not ready for that level of commitment, here's a link to my author page or my book on Amazon, and you can just buy the book. And so you're still putting control into the user's hands versus give me your name, give me your email address, and now I'm going to bombard you with a bunch of emails all the time. Now you're putting control in their hand. It's like, nope, I just want the book. You've answered enough of my questions in this 4 little question quiz. Give me the link. Or, I'd like to learn a little bit more about you. You seem to have some information that could be helpful. Sure, the Facebook group sounds good, or whatever platform you use.
Right.
Or, you know what? You sound like somebody that I really want to get to know better. I want to get on your mailing list. I want to know about your next book. I want to know about this. Yes, here's my name and email address.
Yeah,
And
so
so
that
for,
kind of ties in with my next question, because I know we have a couple of novelists on the call
Mhm.
today. And so I've been able to make the connection between how to use it as an author of a nonfiction book that's touting my expertise. If I'm a novelist, can we brainstorm a little bit about how, I know a novelist still needs to have a list and a tribe and a following, but how can
Mhm.
we use this in order to help that type of author increase their list?
Sure. So I would say it's still sort of that same thing, but maybe focus it on the characters. So I'm going to use Janet Ivanovich because most people know her. She's been writing the Stephanie Plum books for a long time. And so you could have some quizzes based on your characters, like which character do you most relate to? Do you find feeding your gerbil peanut butter would be a good way to spend your day? Or, and pick 2 or 3 of your main characters and create a mini set of adventures around them. And then it's like, okay, so if you want to know more about what Ranger's up to, go here. If you want to know more about my next book about Stephanie Plum, go here. And again, I'm just kind of making this up off the cuff,
No,
but
that's great.
that same type of thing could work because you get them involved with your characters or
And
the
the purpose is
story.
to help authors create a community.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that way, it's like as soon as I say to somebody, I was like, oh, I'm reading the newest Janet Ivanovich book. Oh, yeah. Are you like Team Ranger? Or are you Team Morelli? Are you, and so you have people bonding around specific characters. And so that also helps the community because then people are coming to the community because they're like,
Mhm.
oh, can you tell me why he did that? Or is there going to be another book? Will he have a bigger role in that book? So I think that's one way that you can do that.
So we have a quick comment, a concern about the cost of creating these characters and games. In my mind, what I'm thinking is that the simplest form of gamification are
Mhm.
the on Facebook, how you'll do a poll.
Right.
You ask 2 or 3 questions, that's actually no cost at all, as long as you can figure out how to do it, or the least expensive when you find someone to help you do that. And
Right.
then as their list grows and their audience grows,
Yes.
their sales will grow also. And so then your budget gets bigger when you can start, as you have more books in your portfolio, you're building this whole universe, to use a word that we've heard today, around creating a community that likes the characters and wants to see what's going to happen next. And specifically, Karen, in your case, one of the things I thought about was that, you're creating a community of like-minded individuals who have common topics to discuss. Your first book being about the experience of putting a parent into assisted living, and then your next forthcoming book is about surviving the last 2 years, but in a novel format. And so women of a certain age is your target audience, people who are having those same experiences.
And so to answer that question too about the cost, and somebody had posted in the chat about the cost and the characters and things. So when I'm talking about characters, it's the characters that you've already written as the novelist. And so it's just really you could use stock art even, or stick figures to represent those characters, or pictures that represent them. So it's not like you have to go out and have custom characters drawn for you, because like in my mind, when they did the Stephanie Plum movie, it ruined the books for me for a while, because in my head, I already had a picture of like what Morelli looked like and what Ranger looked like. And then when an actor played it, it's like, oh, that's not how I pictured it at all. In terms of cost, and that's why I wanted to screen share here. As I'd mentioned when I started, we use a tool called Genially, GENIAL.ly. I am not an affiliate. I don't make any money from promoting them. It's just an easy to use tool. And they have a free and a paid version. And the paid version is only $150 a year. And you can create unlimited game style presentations. So, if you use PowerPoint, you can also make more interactive PowerPoints in here. So to me, it's just really worth the investment, especially if I'm going to speak and stuff. And on the free version, you get a link that you can then share on your Facebook, on your LinkedIn, on your website. With the paid version, you just get a few more options in terms of how you can present the content. So I use a lot of this in online courses. And so I need something that's not the link. I want to actually put the file into a client's online course. But it's just for a quick, like 2-minute. This is one of a client. She teaches direct sales moms. And she said, here's my colors. Here's the theme that I want. And then we just added these, and everything is like a point and click. When I click on this, there's just this little interaction. It's like, okay, I want it to pop up with this window. So it's very simple to build, and you can use a pre-built template and just change your colors, so that it doesn't take a lot of time for you to do this on your own.
And this is the Genially.
This is the Genially, correct.
Okay.
And they also include a full library access to Pixabay and cutouts and Giphy or Jiffy, however you want to pronounce it. They have a lot of the interactive elements already built for you, so that you don't have to know any programming. So, something like this, where I had that little meter, that's already pre-built. So you don't have to know programming or code or anything like that. You just have to have your idea and think it through, like, okay, what's the answer to the question? When they answer the question yes, where do they go? When they answer the question no, where do they go? Or, you could always set up time with me or my team, and we'd be happy to walk you through the process.
No, it all sounds fascinating. And it does look very similar to PowerPoint. It just has more bells and whistles.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's designed to be interactive. So that's the key thing. There's a very active community, so you can use people's items already and then just make it your own. So, if you are an author, there are several Geniallys already pre-made around books and book topics. So you could look at one of those and go, okay, they've already done the hard part. I'm just going to go in and change the color and change the picture and rewrite the words. But the programming, and I use that term loosely, has already been done. So I don't have to worry about like what page did they go to next. That's already been done for me. Which is why we like it, because it makes it so much easier. So for example, here, meet the Game of Thrones characters. Somebody had asked about that. So, this is based on the TV show or the book. I actually read the book. books. But here you could swap out the picture for your character and it gives you information about them. And from
So you
there,
can type over and edit that copy.
yes, you could edit all of that. You would
Okay,
just say, use this as a template,
gotcha.
save it. But what you don't have to do then is worry about doing all of the okay, when they click on this button, where does it go?
Right,
You just have to go in and change it. So if I wanted to learn about Jon Snow, I just click on Jon Snow's name. So
gotcha.
that's why I think it makes it really easy for authors to create something that's more fun, gamified, interactive, but you don't have to spend a whole lot of time or money doing it.
Very interesting. And it looks like something that, and I'm not a technology person, but it looks like something that I could manage. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why we like the tool, because it's something that you don't need a lot of tech background. Like if you can build a slide in PowerPoint
Mhm.
in probably 30 minutes, you could build your first Genially. It's not going to be perfect because first tries never are, but you could build something quickly. And that's why we really like this tool when we talk to folks about, hey, let's build an interactive lead magnet that's quick and easy that you can do by yourself and it still looks professional.
So let's say we build this, and then what do we do with it?
Excellent. Okay, so let's say we build it. So I'm going to go back to mine here. We'll go over here to the SelfCare Sisters. Maybe. Okay. So then you've got a share button, just
Okay.
like you would see in other places. You can share it as a social page. You can also share it as an exclusive page so that, let's say you want to copy this link and put it on your website, or copy this link and put it on Facebook. There's also an auto share to the various social networks. You can also send it via an email. And then what they provide is data as well. So once you get that link out into the open, you can look at the data for your individual lead magnets and see, what it's doing. Now, this is more of the my personal profile. Let me go back and grab one. So here I've got statistics, so I can go in and look at that. This was last modified today. This has been used since the 1st of March of last year. And then it shows me, so this is most recent, but I could go back and look at my data from past months, past years, and see how many people. This particular client uses it primarily when she's promoting one of her summits. So she hasn't had a summit in several months, which is why there's not a lot of activity, because she doesn't need it.
Mhm.
But on the data, you can then get that. And then you can also get further data if you want to by monitoring like how and when they interact to it.
So it's curious, Heidi, I actually have a question for you. If NFTs are seen as digital assets, does that become and I own some, let's say, does that become a part of my portfolio? Let me unmute yourself.
Can you hear me, Kathy?
Yes. Uh-huh.
It can, yes, and it depends on the advisor that you're dealing with. But yes, I mean, or you could own them yourself through an exchange. But a lot of advisors are not able to offer those, including myself at this point, because the brokerage that we work for doesn't allow those.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, that does become part of your portfolio. And so
Yeah.
then I'll take it a step further and say, then at that point, you would also want to talk to your attorney about making sure that they've got that included in your estate planning as well, because that's becoming more and more of a hot topic, is that if you own any digital assets, you need to account for that. They don't, at this point, I haven't seen a way for you to add a beneficiary anywhere. So you'll need to have those, listed in your trust or will or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yeah, as a financial advisor, just the fact that that's in your vocabulary now, I'm sure is a new horizon, kind of like, oh, okay, we need to start learning more about those.
Yeah, that's the path that I'm on at this point, is I'm trying to immerse myself in as much knowledge as I can, because I believe that they're here to stay. It's going to be the future of our money.
Mhm.
And my personal view is that I need to be educated on it. So when people start asking me questions, I cannot solicit it or anyone to invest in anything like that. But I can answer high-level questions.
Thank you. So Mary, one of the other questions that I have is, why is this important to me, and why is engagement important? You know,
Excellent question.
why is creating that engagement important? And how can this type of a lead magnet help me with that?
So creating the engagement is really important because you want to build your audience base. You want to build those loyal fans, those loyal readers, so that they continue to purchase things from you. They continue to stay in your community. If you write additional books, you've got an audience that's already excited about it. Like, I think all of us probably have our favorite authors, our favorite musicians. And when they come up with something, it's like, oh yeah, I gotta, make sure I look at that, or keep up with that. The other part of engagement is that it makes you more real to your audience, instead of just like, oh, here's this author, great, they wrote a book, but I don't know anything about them. And so some of the authors that I find that are really successful, and also like I want to read everything that they write, is because of the way that they engage with their audience. And I use Neil Gaiman as an example. So he blogs, he interacts, he calls people specifically by name if he posts something on his feed, if he happens to catch it. Now, granted, he's got hundreds of thousands of people that are following him, and he's kind of a busy guy, but he has this core following, but he also makes you feel special because he notices you. So I think that's also where the engagement becomes really important, because let's say you want to go from your book to a course, to a summit, to a workshop. Well, now people know that you care, and they know that you know who they are. Misha Collins is another one. And, he's a celebrity TV star. He uses community to stay in touch with his audience. But there's amazing how many people that are even like old ladies like me that are like, oh my gosh, I got a text message from Misha. And even though it's recorded, it's like, okay, there's something in his system where he's got it automated that, oh, I'm going to get a response. And so what does that mean? That means the next time he's like, oh, here's my new book that's coming out. I don't have kids. I mean, my kids are adults. Why would I want a cookbook that's designed for 6-year-olds? Well, it's because Misha's doing it, and he sent me this text message. And so I went out and I bought this cookbook that I'm never going to use. So, that's why that engagement piece, I think, is so valuable.
Joanne, I see you smiling because I can see the wheels turning in your head too. Because I know you've been tiptoeing into adding games in your magazine.
Mm-hmm.
And your electronic magazine. Do you have any specific questions for Mary? And I think you two know each other, don't you? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it's fascinating. Thanks for the update, especially with the NFT, even though I've been recently exposed to it because somebody actually told me that I have NFTs. I didn't even know what it was. This was a couple months ago. And so I asked a couple people, and like, who was it that just said you're trying to educate yourself on it too? So to learn more, to incorporate that, I totally agree with you, Mary, that we really need to do more of this. And I do believe that we have to make things fun to get people engaged with us. And I always called it edutainment. And maybe we don't use that word anymore. That's like 20 years ago, but I still feel like that we have to engage with them in a fun way for them to really want to look deeper. I actually did a scavenger hunt, which was called Wild Will I Look Deeper? And it was all about to get to know the different experts in a game format to find them. So I love this subject. So thank you.
So, Kathy, I know we're almost out of time. Joanne, thank you. The last thing I would say is, when you think about gamifying anything, whether it's your lead magnet, creating a game, something like that, take the time to sit down and go, okay, what is the desired action I want that user to take? Is it to sign up for my email list? Is it to buy my book? Is it to join my group? Is it to, what kind of feedback are you going to give them if they make the good choice, or the choice you want them to make, or if they don't? Just like when you get that drop cart message from like Amazon or something, like, oh, you left something in your shopping cart. Are you sure you didn't want to buy that? So, you want to give them feedback one way or the other if you can. And then how are you going to reward them for taking the action that you wanted them to take? So if it's like, I want you to sign up for my newsletter by Friday night at midnight, the reward is you're going to get a 15-minute VIP Facebook Live in my group just with me where, submit your questions in advance and I'll answer your questions or whatever works for you. But it's like you have to give a clear path, desired action, feedback, reward, and then rinse and repeat.
And the whole concept is to build that level of trust with your audience. And then they recommend more people to start following you, and you're building your tribe.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. I know we've had some late joiners. Are there any specific questions that anybody wanted to ask that they haven't had a chance to ask?
And I hope this was helpful.
I found it just enough information that I like, oh, okay. Yeah, now I understand better. I learned a lot more today than I knew an hour ago, let me tell you. Yeah, it's got my mind going, oh, how can we use this? And I mean, it'll definitely create conversations with me and my authors. I know that. Mind blowing, as Kate says, yes. So, and I know that we're going to, when we send out the follow-up to the link, because we have recorded today in case you were late and want to watch the entire thing. There was some great information shared, Mary, thank you. And we're also going to send out some links that you gave us when we do the follow-up. We'll send out how to contact Mary if you have any additional questions, as well as some freebie links that she's provided. And we'll give you the link to the recording so that you can watch it on YouTube. Mary, thank you so much. This has been so enlightening. It's like created a whole new world for me.
Awesome. Well, I enjoyed it. And Heidi, thanks for the extra information on NFTs, because I'm just now starting to dive into that world. And it's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yes, it is mind blowing, right, Kay?
Yeah. Heidi's background is perfect. It's like just on the horizon here of a new planet. So thank you everybody so much for joining us today. We'll see you on the recording, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks on the next get together. Thanks,
Bye.
guys.
Thanks for
Bye-bye.
having me.
Thanks, Mary.
Bye.